Here we are.
Hi, you are listening to and/or watching an open dialogue. I'm Violet Howe.
And I'm Tawdra Kandle. And today we're talking about, I feel like we need a bump, bump, bump.
I know, right? We normally try to share good news and fun topics, and today
What is a
we're
fun
talking about aging. And I
thing?
think one of the reasons we want to talk about this is because we don't we as a society don't consider that good news. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
Um,
no.
you and I were having a conversation, as we have many conversations, but we were talking about aging, and I just think there's and I'm gonna preface this by saying, especially as women, if you are a man and you are listening, we love you, but you are allowed to age gracefully in a way that women are not. And so I think our topic today is really more geared to our experiences as women. Why are we not allowed to do something that is so completely natural and inevitable? Why is that?
Definitely. And I don't know. And gentlemen, you are allowed to keep listening because it might give you some, some insight.
Empathy.
Yeah, some insight and empathy for us. But, if you want to go grab a drink and some popcorn or something, or you can't watch baseball because baseball hasn't started yet, but soon. Um, yeah, but no, it really is a woman thing. And I mean, I'm fascinated by this because I think a lot of how my grandmothers looked when I was born, when I was the age of my grandchildren. And I think to myself, I don't think I look like a grandmother.
No, and you look, I know there was a thing recently with the Golden Girls where they were talking about the age of the Golden Girls was basically the same as the ladies in Sex and the City reboot,
Right.
but they look totally different and the way their lifestyles,
Yes.
presented. So I do think on the whole, we've pushed back, I guess what you would say, the dowdiness of old age. I do think we've pushed that back from like the time of our grandmothers, or even the time of our mothers. But I still just think, even from a young age, we want to press women into being older quicker. I mean, we look at, there's a lot of criticism of beauty pageants in the way that it, either sexualizes young girls, or they add makeup and outfits to make them look older than they are. We look at like preteen clothes, we look at, teenagers, we look at the ever younger, cover models, like all that type of stuff. Like, it's like weird. It's such a rush to age women up until a point, and then we want them to stop aging.
Do you feel like you wanted to be older when you were, let's say, I think the prime age of that is usually around 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like you wanted to be older?
Yeah, I would look at my cousins or my aunts who were older, and I wanted to be a teenager, I wanted to be a young adult, and then I think all the way through, like, middle school and high school, you want to graduate, you want to be in college, and then, like, in college, you can't wait to get out of college and be in your 20s so that you can drink and you can go where you want to and you can rent a car, you can do whatever. And then there's like this little hump that you cross where all of a sudden you're like, no, 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 I don't want to get older now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was thinking about, and this movie has been on my mind a lot because, slight segue, um, Jennifer Garner, who I adore, and
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo, who I also adore, they made a movie that is one of my all-time favorites, 13 Going on 30. And they today, The Adam Project premieres on Netflix, and this is kind of they've been touting it as their 13 Going on 30 reunion.
Right. They
And
even
so,
have like a joint Instagram page
yeah,
where you could release.
they do, and they were if you've watched the movie, they were eating Zazzles,
Right.
right? Is that what it is?
Right. Yeah. And they gave Zazzles to the young boy who
He was
plays Adam in
and
the
he was
Adam.
like, that movie came out before I was born. So, but when you think about that movie, 13 Going on 30, that's what she says. When she's so upset, she goes into the closet and she says, she's 13, she's turning 13. And she says, I want to be 30, flirty, and fabulous. And that's when she opens her eyes. She is, in fact, 30, flirty, and fabulous, arguably. But so at the age of 13, all she can think about is, to her, 30 is that age of perfection. When
Right.
you are,
Right.
you're finished school, you're on your own, you have a career, and everything is wonderful. She finds out that maybe adulting is hard, as you know.
As we all find out.
Yeah, and you and I have had children who have learned that adulting is maybe not as fun as what it appears to be.
Right.
That there are a few more challenges, but yes, I think that especially as women, we keep wishing for the next thing, and then we get to a certain point, we're like, oh, I wish I could be 23 again. I
Right.
wish I could be, for me, the
But
age was 31. That age, I always thought 31 was like the penultimate age. I don't know why.
But I will say, I will add a caveat to that. I would want to go back to that age knowing what I know now. And I think one of the benefits of aging is the wisdom that you gain and the
Right.
experience that you gain. And of course, a lot of that has been through, heartache or trials or tribulations or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do feel like that's one of the benefits of getting older. I'm probably, and it's so funny. I used to like read interviews or watch interviews or read articles of people that would say they were comfortable in their skin. And at 25, I was like, what does that even mean?
Right.
At 53, I know exactly what that means. Like, I'm very comfortable in my skin. I'm very comfortable with who I am and how well I know myself and what I'm able to do. And I am not as consumed with worry about, what everyone else thinks or what everyone else is doing or anything else. But it's such a double-edged sword because at the same time, I do find myself more consumed with my appearance as I age than I ever thought I would be. I very proudly would tell anyone when I was in my 20s that I would never have I would never have plastic surgery. I would never have anything done to my face. Like, you just age gracefully. That's all. And like now that like I've got like this, stuff going on with my neck where it's like the skin's changing. I had a lovely, beautiful golden tan when I was younger. And now, my chest area is paying the price of that tan, the lines around my face, my hair alternating between getting darker and getting grayer, my eyelids coming down over my eye, like all these things happen that I'm like, what is this? What's going on?
Wow.
So it's like that double-edged sword that I would love to be young again and have the skin that I had then and the body that I had then and the endurance that I had then and the ability to pretty much eat whatever I wanted then. But I would want the knowledge that I have
Right.
now. The
You want
wisdom.
the knowledge that comes from the experience.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And there goes the dog.
But we have a casual podcast. Whatever happens,
Yep.
happens.
Yep. Oh, and you know what? He just knows that Haley is going to leave. She's not even leaving yet. He can tell by her actions and what she's doing.
Right. She's preparing to leave and that triggers them.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I would agree with you about that. Park, I'm seeing if I can mute. No. I don't know if there is a way to mute myself on here.
I know I can mute me, but I can't mute you.
I don't know whether I can or not. Maybe I can. I don't know.
Mine's in the lower left corner of my screen.
The lower left corner of your screen. Oh, I see it. I see it now. Okay, so when he starts barking again, I'm going to mute me, and then you can just say whatever you want to say.
Okay.
The mic is yours. No, I agree. I never really thought about aging. I have two. He's just pup. Stop. He's I had grandmothers who really were beautiful and they aged very gracefully. Now, having said that, my one grandmother on my father's side. All right.
Okay, while you're talking about that, one of my grandmothers passed away at 67. So she passed away in what I now think is relatively young. When she passed away, I was like 19, and I didn't think that 67 was young. My other grandmother is 92, and is just a force of nature. And I would say up until up until right before the pandemic, maybe a year or so before the pandemic, she was still go, 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 go. You know, she would drive anywhere she wanted, and she mowed her own grass, and she chopped her own wood, and she did everything for herself. And was always a lady that I don't think ever has looked her age. And so, I don't know. I think there's so much to be gained with those years that come, and I wish that we didn't have such a social stigma on the physical part that comes with it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's really, I mean, it's billions of dollars that people spend to try to look younger, or try to chase younger, or try to capture younger. And sometimes they go to such lengths that they no longer look young, and they no longer look like themselves, and they no longer look natural, because they've
Yeah.
gone to such lengths to try to chase the of youth kind of thing. So, um, for those of you who are listening and not watching, she's like waving me on because of the dog. But
Okay, it's safe now. It's all
okay,
safe now that
all right. We're
we've
talking about your grandmothers.
yes, my one grandmother I figured out was 56 when I was born. Yeah, that's right. She was born in 1911. And so she was 56. So she was older than I am now, but not much older. But
Right.
I always had this image of her as, you
Being
know,
old.
yeah, her hair was dark and it got more salt and pepper, but she never colored her hair to the best of my knowledge. And my other grandmother, her hair had gone white overnight. She was in an accident and her hair, everybody says it can't happen, but apparently it did. I was not alive, but this is what everybody said, that it went white overnight. And so she'd always had white hair from the time I could
Right.
remember. And that grandmother had a lot of health issues. So that I think I associated that a lot with aging, and she would have been 65 when I was born, the other one. So my parents were both children of older people. My one
Right.
grandmother was 41 when she had my mother. So, um, but I felt like they both aged gracefully. They didn't try to dress differently. They were both people who had been born at the beginning of the 20th century, and so that was the norm, I think, at that point. And
Right.
and when I think about the whole thing with Golden Girls and the Sex and the City reboot, just like that, I think what that shows is our view and our expectation of when we think about senior citizens, when we think about grandmothers, when we think about this kind of thing. Up in the 80s, that was what our view was.
Right.
Was
Right. So, do
people.
you think we've become more accepting, or that we've allowed women to age,
No.
not age later, but to there's this perception of like what you're supposed to look like for your age, right?
Right.
And women get criticized if they dress too young, or if they're trying to look younger, or they're trying to dress younger, or whatever. And that's, I think that's one of the ones that I have the biggest problem with, because I don't feel inside, I don't feel any different than
Yeah.
I felt probably 20 years ago. And so the things that I want to wear, and I'm not talking about like, I don't have the body to be running around in a little crop top and the low slung pants anymore, unfortunately. Not, and I don't think I would.
Do whether they have the body or not. Maybe we should just,
Right.
you know.
Um, and I don't think, for me personally, I don't think I would be wearing that now. I wore what I wore at 30. But at the same time, when I go into larger stores that have women's section and misses or juniors or whatever they call it, I never like the clothes that are in the women's section. I still like the clothes that are in the misses and the juniors section. And so there's that thin line of like, are you dressing too young? Are you like, who decides? Okay, at a certain age, women are supposed to wear these clothes, and then at a certain age, they stop wearing these clothes. Like, who gets to decide that?
Yeah, and I think it probably is it's probably less of a societal thing as it is maybe even regional or who you grow up around. My mother had a very strong feeling, and you and I have discussed this before, that when a woman gets past say 35. I mean, that was probably even pushing it. It's probably 30. She shouldn't have long hair anymore.
Right.
My mother
Right.
was
You and
like,
I have discussed this because I have family members who,
yeah,
even now, kind of
yeah.
like get the vapors every time they think about the fact that my hair is long.
Right,
So,
and I mine is longer than it has been in a long time, and I think about that, that was just a thing, that you got your hair cut, and then you started going, and I guess you got permanents, and you went to the beauty parlor once a week, and you got your hair done, and that was part of life. Um, I my mother, who died when she was 63, remained very youthful all the way to the end.
right,
She always colored her hair. She always was very well put together. She dressed, in clothes that flattered her, not in clothes that she felt were right for her age or
right,
anything
right,
like that. And I think I probably emulated her more than my grandmothers. I'm certainly not wearing a polyester slacks.
right, right,
And there are times I'll pick up a shirt and be like, "What are you doing? This is not you're not 80. You don't have to wear this." No
right.
offense to anybody who is 80. I think when you're 80, you can wear whatever you want too.
Well,
I think we should be
and that's where I think, like, why can we not just wear whatever we want no
right.
matter what age we are? You know what I mean? Like, why does there have to be a cutoff point where you have to push aside your own wants or your own expression or your own individuality? And I feel like that's one of the things. I mentioned earlier, like 53 and comfortable in my skin kind of thing. That's one of the things where, like, I don't conform to that. I don't. I've gotten so many lectures from my lovely, like, well-meaning aunt about the fact that my hair is too long for my age, but I like my hair, so I'm not cutting it. And I
That's
do,
right.
like, for the majority of, like, I wear what I want to wear, and I feel like I don't allow that to constrict me. But at the same time, like I said, I'm very conscious of the changes in my body that I don't have control over. I can control what I'm wearing with my clothes, and I
Yeah.
control how I wear my hair, but there's parts of that I can't control. And
Yeah.
I do feel like we've gotten more, forgiving is not the right word, that we've gotten more allowing,
Yeah.
maybe
Tolerant.
tolerant of
Mhm.
allowing women to not fit into such a strictly confined definition of what they should be at a certain age. But at the same time, we still very much punish them for getting older. You see that, in Hollywood, you see that in modeling, you see that in what the fashion industry offers. There's so much against being older.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and so I think that's what, like, I didn't realize when I was younger how much things are geared towards being younger. Even in something as small as,
Mhm.
I remember going to a concert when I was maybe like 41 and
Mhm.
being very aware that, like, no one noticed that I was there. And I don't know if that makes sense when I say that, but, like, there is an age you reach where people stop paying attention to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And something where, like, you can still look just as nice as you did 10 years earlier, but you're not going to get the same level of attention. And I know
yeah.
when I say that, people are going to be like, "Oh, is that what you're looking for? You're looking for
No,
attention?" I'm not saying
yeah,
that. I'm just saying
I
that
know what
there's
you're
a
talking
certain
about.
point where you've crossed an age threshold
Yeah,
where you no longer exist in the same way that you did before to
definitely.
other people, even though you may still feel the same on the inside.
Definitely. You're not necessarily turning heads the way that you were, you
Right.
know. Yeah, I understand that. And eh, that's a difficult adjustment. A lot of the stuff is probably less the physical, although the physical is huge, and I don't want to downplay that. Sorry, a cat is climbing onto my lap and decided that she slipped and her claws would go right into my leg. We're all good now. Um, but this idea that I was always the youngest person in any group. Like I always gravitated to people who were older than me, and I always had this thing where I was sitting at the feet of the people, being like, "Oh, I'm the ingenue who is soaking things up,"
Right.
because especially because I was 20 when I got married, so most of the people who were military spouses around me were at least 5 to 10 years older than me. I was always the youngest. And then I was doing stuff that people who were 5 to 10 years older than me were doing. And so I don't know at what point I was like, wait, why am I the oldest person in the room? When did this happen? Because that is, I was in a meeting last week and I looked around, and it was a virtual meeting. I looked around, I'm like, I am the oldest person here. And I suddenly just felt like ancient.
Yes.
I still felt,
Yes.
I
I've
still
had that
felt,
experience.
yeah, I
Yeah.
still felt, relevant, and I felt like I had things to say, but yeah, it is definitely, there's a lot of things that we talk about too, physically, that um, that people talk about, like facelifts and cosmetic surgery and Botox and coloring your hair and whatever. And then there's other things that are, that we don't talk about so much, that are physical things that we deal with too. And I don't know that I'm going to go there, but I'm just saying that there are a
Well,
lot.
no, I think we should go there to some extent.
Okay.
Like, how can you have a conversation about women aging without discussing what happens when women age? You
Yeah.
can't. Like,
Yeah.
why is that a taboo
And
topic?
I don't necessarily have a problem with talking about it as a taboo. I was just, you and I didn't discuss this ahead of time, and I didn't want to see why deer in the headlight, like, I can't believe she's saying this. And then I'd have
As
to
I text you, what the hell are you doing?
what you're talking about. Yeah. But there are things, I more than ever now have women who are right around my age, who are friends of mine. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about things like, coughing and sneezing and whatever, that's an issue. And there are things you could do. I heard from somebody yesterday about something that I had not heard of. And I was so excited. I was like, this is awesome.
You tell.
Okay, so you go and you go to a doctor's office and you sit on this like electrode thing, and it strengthens your pelvic floor. She said it was like the equivalent of doing 10,000 Kegels in a
Really?
period of time. And she said it has made a huge difference in her life. And I'm
Okay,
like,
so those of you who aren't here yet and you
yeah,
think we're vague speaking,
no.
when you get older, and this
Mhm.
doesn't it's not a guarantee that this is going to happen, but it's likely.
Yeah.
When you get older, your pelvic floor, your pelvic muscles weaken.
Mhm.
And so one thing that happens is that the moment that you feel as though you need to go pee, you have to go right then. You
Yeah.
can't hold it like you used to. Girl, when you think you gotta go, you gotta go. And there may be only 5 drops that come out, but you gotta go right then. The other thing
You're always worried about you going there, and you are going
I'm
right.
going there
You're
because
going there. Go ahead.
I think part of
Yeah.
the problem is that all of this is so
Right.
we don't discuss this, and it's like, why not? Like, it's
Mhm.
so anyway. The other thing is that if you don't go right away, then those little 5 drops of pee, if you happen to cough or sneeze or laugh unexpectedly, they're going to go ahead and go without you, even though you didn't go. So it's know, there's so many things that come with aging with a woman's body that you're like, what the hell is this? Like, it's not enough that I've had a period. For the majority of my life, I've had to deal with, at least 5 days a month of bleeding and dealing with cramps. I saw this thing the other day where they said that they determined that, like, the level of pain with severe cramps is equivalent to a heart attack.
Oh.
And it was like this funny thing where it was saying, like, we got these commercials, tampon commercials, that are like, don't let that stop you, go swimming, ride a horse, play basketball, do whatever you want to do. And they said, if you had told any man who was bleeding for 5 days with a nonstop heart attack to go ride a horse, you would think you were nuts. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not enough that we've dealt with this our entire lives, but
Yeah.
now at the end of that, there's this whole other thing you go through with hot flashes and with bloating and with menopause fog in your brain, and with the your body changes again, all the hormones and all the things that change with you with going through menopause. It's effective aging, and it's kind of like, really, seriously.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about it. There's so
No.
much of, I think pretty much everybody knows hot flashes, because hot flashes has become kind of like a
Yeah.
joke or a funny reference. But
Yeah.
there's so much that people don't talk about. And like you said,
Yeah.
when you get to be of a certain age, then you start discussing this stuff with other people and you're like, holy crap. So that's why I wake up every night at 2 o'clock. Oh, so that's why, I'm terrified of sneezing. Like, so all these things you don't know because we don't talk about them. It's taboo. We have to keep this image of women being youthful and beautiful and, without flaw kind of thing. And it's
Yeah.
bullshit.
And my husband and I watch TV at night. We always watch, through our Fire Stick, through a streaming service. And so the commercials tend to be, when you have commercials in a show, they tend to be the same commercials over and over again. So he'll be like, oh, I can't believe I have to see this. But they're now getting a lot more realistic about certain feminine products. So, it used to be that they would show it and they would have like little blue water and you dip it
Yes.
in, whatever. And now it's red and they say blood and whatever. My husband's like, I don't need to see this. And I said, well, guess what? I've had to live with it. So I think I think there's a small price for you to pay, right?
And I
So
don't think it should be taboo. And now we're kind of going backwards with the age thing. But I know that, like, I think I speak for, if not almost every middle school and high school girl, that your very worst fear is going to be a bleed through. Like, oh my God, that's terrifying.
yep.
Why should it be terrifying? Half of the population bleeds once a month, or probably not half, because there are women who have issues with it or whatever. But I'm just saying, it's like, why is this huge taboo topic? It's not like we're doing something wrong or we're doing something shameful or we're doing something. It's just a natural thing that happens to our bodies.
Yeah.
But we've created this huge thing around, like, talking about tampons in front of boys or letting them know that we're on our period, or the whole thing with the commercials, or let's don't make anything unpleasant.
No.
We have to deal with it. We have to live with it. It's something that we live with. And I really think that part of this whole stigma around aging starts so much younger with, let's hide everything that is natural and normal about a woman, and let's create this image that we want of her, and try to preserve that image of who she's supposed to be.
Definitely. And
Step up on the soapbox with me, girl.
My mother was always of the, when it came to, she was good about talking to us about getting your period and everything like that. But she never had any problem. When she had babies, she would say to me, oh, I never had any pain. So when I went into labor, I knew to expect pain, but I was like, well, I'm not as stalwart as my mother. My mother, who had 2 children, as opposed to 4, but still, she was like, oh, I had one little cramp and then there you were. And, that's not really, I think to myself, was it that? But my point is that we never talked about menopause because she never complained about it to me. She just said, oh no, one day it just stopped. That was it. And then by the time I was going through it, as I said, my parents have been gone for, 15 and 16 years. So I don't have anybody who I can go to and say, except my older friends, my friends who have gone through it, and say, this is what's happening. And as I've kind of found myself more at the, I think I only have one friend who is older than me, who I feel I have that level of intimacy with, who I can say, hey, this is happening. Is this normal? And she's like, yeah, this happened to me too. But it is, like I didn't know really anything. I expected that, your periods ended and they were unpredictable. And I did expect hot flashes. But, I didn't know that most women who go through menopause gain a good deal of weight. And it doesn't matter how you eat or how you exercise. It really,
metabolism changes completely.
Yeah, it just is. And that was a big shock to me. That was a huge shock to me. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? No, I've always been able to just, I just stop eating and then everything's fine. But it isn't. That isn't the way it is. There is a book I know I've mentioned on here before. I'm pretty sure I have. It's called Our Bodies, Ourselves by Christiana Northrup. And I highly recommend it. It's an older book, but it's really, really well written. I think it's by my bed now that I think about it. About the different stages of aging and what to expect. And she celebrates it. It's not like, oh, and then, now you're sliding down toward the end of your life. It's not that kind of thing. It's more like, guess what? Now you are in the greatest phase of your life because you have all this wisdom and you have the time and the understanding of the value of time to be able to share it and to go and be part of a community of women where you say, it's okay. This is all right. We're
Right.
going to help you get through it. Everything's going to be good. And you're not panicking as much. And I'm not sure the whole panicking thing is right on, but one can hope. But it's a very well written description of that, and I do highly recommend checking out something that is going to give you a heads up on what's happening if you're younger than us. If you're in your mid 50s, I'm about to be right smack in the middle of 50 of the 50s, and I don't necessarily I feel like I'm busier now, and my life is very vibrant. I certainly don't feel like I'm ready to sit in a rocking chair and look out at the pasture. Some days I'd like to. I wish I had the time to do that, but I don't feel like it's imminent. I still feel needed, and maybe some days I really don't want to be that much needed, but I still feel very, very much part of life, and
Right.
you know,
Well, I feel like one of the things that you said kind of stuck out to me. Like, I do think it's hard not to feel like when you start going through these changes, oh crap, this signals the end. You know what I
right.
mean? I'm
Yeah.
coming to the end. It
Yeah.
is definitely a physical transition, and it's hard not to feel like that transition, like it's hard not to let that emotionally and psychologically affect you, that you're going through this physical transition, and we're heading into the third act of a 3-act play. It's just, it is what it is. You have
Yeah.
pre-puberty, and then you have womanhood, for
Yeah.
whatever that means, and then you go into this stage. And I think the hard thing is not seeing that as a negative transition, and not seeing that as a
Right.
negative stage, or not allowing it to really, be hanging over your head like a dark cloud. I shared an article yesterday that I loved. It was a woman who lost her husband of decades when I think she was 70. And it was after a lengthy illness. And she ended up finding love again. And this article was about how she's literally having the best sex of her life. Like, she's, in this stage in her 70s where, like, like she said, when they were younger, when she and her boyfriend, which is what she calls him, her boyfriend was, married and had lost his wife as well. And both couples, when they were younger, were consumed with their careers and consumed with their children and consumed with all this other stuff. And even, like, to some extent, like grandchildren or whatever. And now they're to a stage of life where, like, they can travel whenever they want to, and they can spend time together, and they can do all these things. And she was saying that, she had some experiences when she was younger that affected her feelings about sex, and
Mhm.
that carried into her marriage with her husband. And she said now she has, like, this almost like liberation of not being shackled by those things. And she talked about that she and her boyfriend have, a nightstand drawer full of sex toys that they incorporate, which was not something that her husband ever felt comfortable with them doing. And
Yeah.
they, she did talk about some of the physical hardships, like her boyfriend, who I think is like 2 or 3 years older than her, is using something to help with erectile dysfunction, and she uses something to help with vaginal dryness, and that, those are things that happen as you get older. But that she said, I really feel like this is the best sex of my life. And we've talked about before, within the publishing industry,
Mm.
for the longest time. Now mine are going to bark.
Well, I heard somebody whining, and it sounded like somebody whistling, and I was like, "Is somebody there whistling near you?"
No, it's
As you're
Dave.
talking about the
But
greatest sex of
we
your life.
talked about the industry being, anybody over 30 was like too old. And basically, those of us who wanted to write older heroines were literally told no one wants to read about old women having sex. Like, that's just not something people want to read. But newsflash, we don't stop having sex. We don't stop feeling passion. We don't stop wanting to be touched and held and desired and all these other things. And sometimes that late in life stage, for many people, I think, is the freest that they've ever had in their sex lives, because they're not so consumed with their body. They're not so consumed with work. They're not so consumed with child rearing and,
Well,
parenthood.
and
That's
getting
a lot of
pregnant,
sexual
you
energy.
know,
Getting
that
pregnant, right?
that's not something you have to worry about. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that that's yet another layer of this. We want to shut women down at a certain age and determine that, okay, you're no longer sexy after this point, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be that way.
No,
So,
it definitely doesn't. And I do think that we should be writing about that. You know, what is sometimes troubling, or not troubling, that's not the word I should use, but sometimes an obstacle to overcome is that a lot of readers who are of that age still want to read YA or younger women. I have a population of readers who are of a certain age because of my husband's work. And they always say to me, "Oh, I don't want to read about somebody like me. I want to read about somebody who's, maybe only 30 or only 40 or, something like that." And so that is a difficulty.
but I think the flip is also true
It is true.
because I have a lot of readers who are much younger. Do you have an echo now?
No, I don't.
Oh, I have an echo.
Somebody's trying to call
Oh.
me.
But I have a lot of readers who are much younger, but they read, I have several heroines who are in their 50s and they read that and say that they can still relate, even though they may have been through menopause, they can relate to other things that are going on in the story. So I do think we're opening that or broadening that
Yeah.
where no longer the heroines have to be in their 20s or 30s. And there's many women who have said they very much appreciate that there's more heroines available now in an older age range.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that we're going to see a trend more toward that. I also think that we started to see older actresses, and I think people like Diane Keaton and um, trying to think who else I've seen. There's lots of names. Candice Bergen. She has, continued to act. There's a lot of movies that I actually absolutely love that are about women of a certain age. Diane Wiest. Um, Even like you look at Meg Ryan is about our age. She's probably just a little bit older than me. Um,
And I think that's one thing that's happening now is you've got the baby boomers, like the biggest generation that we have,
right,
who are definitely older women.
right.
Gen X, which is our generation, is now older and over the age of 50. And you have the upper cusp of the millennials are
Yeah,
now approaching that. And so
yeah,
you have this huge segment of the population that is now older and they want to see themselves reflected in entertainment, in TVs and movies and books, and they
right.
want to see themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I hope that we're going to continue to see Hollywood, publishing, television, everything embrace that and share that and talk about um, the realities of aging, but not in such a way, not the Golden Girls was good, I think, when I think back about it, that they did hit several topics. Those women were still having romances, late in life, and or I guess it wasn't that late in life. At our age, they were having the romances, and I also think, Sex in the City, the reboot. If people realize how old those women are, it's also inspirational in a very good way. I looked at. I really enjoyed that reboot because I thought to myself, nobody was talking about riding off into the sunset. It was like, oh no, we're still right in the prime. They were making changes. They were finding new things about them. I mean, the whole, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but the whole Miranda storyline was, you know, her life really turning around.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I feel like I still have an echo. I don't know if you guys who are
I,
listening will be able to hear the echo, but
I can't hear an echo, but I can hear you're breaking up slightly. Not a lot. Like I can still, and I don't know what it has to do with. Nothing changed on my end. I got a phone call, but I declined it. So
okay. Well, we will wrap up just in case we are having technical
yeah,
difficulties. But we just want to encourage you to age. Like, not, I'm going to say age gracefully, but like, why do we even have to tack that on? Let's just embrace whatever you are and reach
yeah,
out to other people that are that age or older to find out if things are normal. But just, I don't know. Embrace the whole process. It shouldn't be so taboo, and it shouldn't be something that's negative.
Definitely. And share with us. We would love to hear your stories about how you feel about aging, how you feel about people who are older than you, how you feel about you know, going on ahead. I always say, when one of my friends will text me, "Oh, getting old is hell," I always say, "Yeah, but it really beats the alternative." And
Yeah,
when you have people in your life who have passed away at a relatively young age, you really do appreciate the fact that you're, hopefully going to get the opportunity to live long enough
right.
to see what it's
To
like.
age.
Yeah, to age. Absolutely. So, and you can find us on an open dialogue on Facebook, and you can email us if you like at an open dialogue1@gmail.com. And you can find Violet Howe.
At violethow.com and on
You'll
all
see
the
her
normal social media channels.
um,
And you can find Tawdra Kandle.
at tawdrakandle.com, and Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, a little bit, and
TikTok.
a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. I feel like that's one of those places where I definitely feel old is when I'm on TikTok. But
Right.
I look around and I see other people. I'm like, hey, you know what? Screw it.
So we're gonna sign off with all of our wrinkles and our gray hairs, and we're gonna be back soon.
We
Thanks for joining us.
living our vibrant life.
Yes, exactly. Living our best life.
That's right. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.